Hello, welcome to Communication Conflict Resolution, Week 6. This week we'll be tackling the article Choosing the Right Words in an Argument. And we've got some point values this week. One project, a bigger project worth 60 points, called Asking Questions Without Blame. And we also have, if you remember, I moved a thought piece number 3 to this week, just to spread things out a little bit better. So here's how it looks. For this week, again, we're in Module 3, and we're still talking about power. Power is a 4-week module, so we're in Week 3 of our 4-week module. So here we are, Week 6. If you're watching this video, you are on your way. So watch this video. It's be a little shorter than your normal videos, which is cool. I'm sure you'll like that. But then, of course, I'd like you to read the short article, Choosing the Right Words in an Argument, which is very prescriptive, again, which means useful. So they take you through some scenarios there with regard to choosing the right words. And as we know, words are very powerful. So following up with that, then, of course, is our big project for the week. Everything's due on Sunday because we don't have any discussions this week. So you've got Asking Questions Without Blame, which I'll take you through kind of the high level of that. And then we'll discuss the thought piece as well coming up here pretty quickly. Last thing we'll do is I'll review with you quickly the test number 2, which is next week. And that's pretty much the lion's share of what we'll be doing next week is taking that test. So it'll be an easy week generally, and you'll have some time just to focus on preparing for that test, which is worth 50 points. And that's on March 10th, so not this week, but next week. Okay, let's press on here. So first and foremost, I want to talk about thought piece 3. It's all about power, right? And it's more or less your relationship to power up to this point in life. So a couple things I'd like you to do is obviously take into account the things we've learned so far regarding power in this module, and then apply that back to your own personal experience. So what does power mean to you? Answer those questions. And of course, looking for those specific examples, the more specific you can be. And you guys have been doing a great job with providing unique or specific examples of your own lives. So no different here. Cautionary tales and positive things as well. So if you've been given power, how did you handle that power? Conversely, if you maybe you were powers held back from you, how did that make you feel, and how did you handle that? Either way, good kind of cathartic sort of experience here for you guys. Looking forward to seeing and reading your outputs. So that's thought piece number 3. That is due, of course, on Sunday, March 3rd at midnight. All right, let's tackle asking a question without blame. And that's kind of what we're talking about this week here. And as we know, words are very powerful. And a lot of times, and in fact, my whole life, I've gone through, up until my older ages, I went through pretty much thoughtlessly about the words I chose. And frankly, like we've discussed in the last lectures, or previous lectures, we are conditioned by our parents' behavior largely. Not to blame them, but certainly we pick up on how they handle things. And my mother was kind of the dominating person in our family who really didn't take into account, the words she chose. And so I kind of learned that, right? So I used a lot of words that caused conflict in my life, which I've been able to avoid more so based on my own, arc of education. So part of our job is to answer questions, not judge them with our answers. That's a pretty powerful statement there in its own right. So again, we're going to learn this more as we read this article, choosing the right words in an argument. So a couple of things now. Some of you guys I know are parents, and I've enjoyed reading some of your stuff there. It's kind of fun to compare notes. But this one here, this is if you take away anything from this section, I would say this is sage advice here. Not just for parents, but for anybody dealing with others in dicey situations. So some things you can ask with, ways to ask questions of your kids, or I would say by extension, anybody, without blaming them, which then, again, obviously puts them immediately in a defensive posture, which then leads to potential conflict, which, do as I say, not as I do, right? I'm still learning this one. Generally speaking, and we'll talk about emotions coming up here in an upcoming module, but a lot of times emotions short circuit our better judgment. But if you can remember these 5 things and start employing them, having them in your pocket, you will go a long way towards mitigating any conflict. So the first one, can you tell me about it? Obviously just asking them to non-threateningly say, hey, tell me what happened. Or how did it happen? So that's number 2. Number 3, can you help me understand? again, without saying, how did you do this or why did you do this, using the word you, can you help me understand? Number 4, can we figure out a way to solve this? So we is a really inclusive way of saying that, not you better figure this out, mister, which I heard quite often when I was a kid growing up. And 5, what can we do to help? What can we, again, we inclusive. So really simple tools there and things to think about as we go forward here. So that's the article, Choosing the Right Words in an Argument. I would say read that quickly. It comes from Harvard Press. Really kind of cool stuff and some good examples of situations you might experience. So it'll take you probably about 10 minutes to read max, I would say. It'll be a nice setup for actually what we're going to be doing here today, or this week rather, which is, again, asking questions without blame. Okay, so that's worth 60 points. And essentially what you're going to be doing here is you're going to be crafting a message, okay? In such a way that does not create a situation where there could be conflict. So let's get into this a little bit more. Now, each situation is unique. This first one here is centering around an audit in which there was a $25,000 deficit found. So quick facts here, and you can read this through here, but I'm going to give you the high level. Martha is the division head. An audit from a new firm turned up a $25,000 deficit. Okay, so that's a red flag. Along the way here, one of the facts you have to know is that new financial software was introduced that has everybody confused. So it's possible that there was some sort of simple glitch within the system, the new system. Ed, the division accountant, and Ruth, the accountant's payable secretary, are loyal employees who need to be questioned about the situation, right? So loyal meaning that they've been around a long time. Never before has there been any issue like this. So, okay, the question then is, how do you address this? And I think what we're asking you to do is to send a note to them via email. And a lot of these are going to be email-based, asking them to set up a meeting. And how do you do this in such a way that you don't get their dander up, as it were? So that's the first one. Number 2, this defective car model, right? So here's the situation. The Jupiter Car Company is one model, the Streak. U.S. traffic safety data shows that the Streak has more crashes than it should statistically. The Streak is built to be sporty, so it's fast, got a little zip to it, and there may be something wrong, or the car may merely be appealing to reckless purchasers. You have to figure that out. And in this case here, you want to ask questions of folks who've had crashes and find out, you want to tease out the honest truth about this. So how do you ask those questions in such a way that you get the honest truth? And this is a survey question. The third one, history course grades are too low. So you got a new teacher named Regina, and Marcus is the department chair. Regina is a new faculty member who is well liked by the students. Ultimately, your goal is to not blame or assume that, because we know what happens when we assume, right? It makes an ass out of you and me. There's a fun one for you. But her grades are significantly lower than those of her colleagues, which has resulted in student complaints. So how do you address that? How do you get Regina? She's a new faculty member, and you like her, generally speaking, as a teacher. So how do you politely address the situation? Okay, conversely, history course grades are too high. So same situation. Marcus is the department chair, and at this time, Regina is a new faculty member who is well liked by the students, but her grades are significantly higher than those of her colleagues, which has resulted in student complaints. Okay, so either way, you've got a situation here where Regina might be vacillating too high or too low, and perhaps there's a problem based on what you've seen here statistically. Number 5, inappropriate humor. Talk to employees, right? So you have to address a situation where a person who's been in the company for a long time, his name is Jim. He is a computer trainer and tech for the corporation. He is a kind and popular employee, except that he tells dirty jokes at work. Ruh-roh. These jokes have started to bother other employees, and they're a bit off color. They're stuff that he's not aware of that might be, especially this day and age, right, where you got a joke that just is not in good taste, or maybe worse. So you've got to address that situation. That's a dicey one. How do you handle that? Again, employing what you now know about having these conversations. All right, so inappropriate humor, this is kind of building on that. You want to talk to Jim directly. So the first one here is a letter or a note to employees. Number 6 is more about addressing Jim directly. Again, Jim is the computer trainer who's been around a long time. He's popular, except that he tells dirty jokes. And these jokes have started to bother other employees. So what do you say to Jim? How do you pull him aside? And what kinds of things do you mention to him? All right, so that's that piece there. That's that project. That's worth 60 points. It's due on Sunday. Take some time on that, I would say, and read the directions through. I kind of glanced over these things, but you get the general idea. So toward that end, I want to suggest this, and the next couple slides here are not necessarily going to be in any of the readings. I just wanted to share this with you because I think it's important. Some of us have identified ourselves as being introverted, right? In other words, don't ask, don't tell, or I'm just not going to get involved because I don't want to be. I'm anxious about being involved, right? Which, as we know from experience and history, can lead to a lot of bad things, right? So in this case here, silence versus violence is really what we're talking about here. And the clarion call here for you guys and for anybody is, frankly, to speak up. I was involved in some trainings throughout my career, but specifically at a company called Briggs & Stratton, where we had regular trainings regarding crucial conversations. Now, there's a bunch of literature around crucial conversations that really kind of get at this point of silence equals violence, that all voices should be heard. So you go through the day-to-day work environment, and you guys probably have some experiences with this. I'm sure you'll share some in your upcoming thought pieces, which are about power and conflict. But we were trained, actually, and this is some of the things that I was actually involved with as a trainer regarding crucial conversations, and we taught folks how to engage. And this triangle here is really about, in the center, you got the GUI center here, which is crucial conversations. But the makeup of that is obviously in one quadrant, you've got opposing opinions, which is a necessary portion of that. Of course, strong emotions are always at play, and then are high stakes. A lot of times you've got folks within disciplines, or maybe different disciplines, who are vying for some sort of to hold sway over a certain opinion, or maybe some kind of project or something along those lines. But we were trained, obviously, to go in and address these situations head on. But crucial conversations are meant to kind of to encourage discussion in a mindful way. So I think this key thing here to mention is that we need to be brave. Again, especially if you're somewhat introverted and just don't want to engage. That does nobody any good, including yourself, particularly if you hold your tongue and then suddenly things go sideways and you had the solution. So don't withhold that information, especially if you're working with others or in a family even. So it's true everywhere. You don't want to be what's known as passive aggressive, which is essentially making your point known in subtle ways, because sometimes people don't pick up on that stuff, and that just creates more discord. So, all right, that's the short lecture for the week. I'm sure that's a welcome surprise to you guys. I just want to mention quickly, here's the Test 2 study guide and kind of the direction for each of these here. I've tried to go through and make sure you know where to find stuff. And this is all the stuff you'll find on this 50-point quiz, which is also due next week, March 10th. Not this week, but next week, March 10th. And you'll see that open up probably the latter part of this week. So you can take that and get ahead of things a little bit. All right. That's it for me for this week. Thanks so much. Let me know if you have any questions. Obviously, you guys have my contact information. Email is the best way to go. If you have a question about anything, as you probably know, I respond pretty quickly to emails. If you want to call me, you can do that, or stop in my office hours, which are Monday, Wednesday, from 2 to 4:30 every week. Good luck this week, and have fun with everything. Looking forward to reading your work, and I'll talk to you next week in week 8.